Yaiba is a young samurai raised in the wilderness by his cool dad, Kinjiro. He doesn't go to school or have a life like a regular boy, so today he's straight up fighting a gorilla during his casual afternoon training session. The match starts and Yaiba easily dodges all of the gorilla's attacks, even having time to flex on him. But he gets a little too cocky and gets caught and thrown into the air. With the help of his other animal friends, he's able to get a mid-air boost and he ends up falling down to deliver the strongest overhead sword strike you've ever seen right on the gorilla's noggin. Yaiba and the animals celebrate and his dad comes over to congratulate him. "Good job, son." "Beating gorillas is a piece of cake," Yaiba replies. But then all the other gorillas see that their homie just got taken down, so they surround them having dirty looks on their faces. At first, Kenjiro thinks about taking them all on at once, but later realizes that he only has one life, so they all immediately start running away while the gorillas chase them. Yaiba and Kenjiro end up hiding in some cargo crates filled with bananas as they see the gorillas run by. But then one of the blind cargo workers doesn't see them in there, so he places the lid on the box and nails it shut, trapping them inside. Just like that, they are put in a truck, heading straight for Japan. Meanwhile, at the airport, little Sayaka waits around and finally spots her dad, Reizo, walking in. She rushes over to him. "Congrats on winning the Asia Kendo Championship," she says. Reizo pats her head, thanking her, but deep down he feels that he can never be a true champion until he defeats Yaiba's dad, Kenjiro. Just then, they hear some strange sounds coming from behind them. They look back and see Yaiba flying right towards them. Yaiba can sense that Sayaka's dad is pretty strong, so he draws his sword, challenging him to a fight. But Sayaka steps in, trying to protect her dad, using an umbrella as her sword, and boldly asks him who he is. Yaiba confidently introduces himself. After Sayaka's dad hears his surname Kurogane, he starts to wonder whether his dad is the arch-nemesis Kenjiro Kurogane. Our boy Yaiba has never seen a girl before in his life, so he looks at Sayaka and asks her, "What are you?" He realizes that Sayaka is an actual girl, so he goes crazy and immediately tries to find out what's under her skirt, but Sayaka unleashes her ultra instinct and bonks him on the head, which makes Yaiba conclude that girls are scary. Just then, Kenjiro is seen at the other end, running toward them while the police trail behind him. Razor spots him from a distance and gives off an evil smirk. This is the moment he has always waited for, his chance to find out who will emerge victorious in their legendary battle. Razor strikes his pose, but Kenjiro just grabs him. "Let's get out of here, man." After which, Yaiba and Sayaka follow. They take a taxi to the city and Yaiba presses his fat face against the window as he looks at how beautiful the city is. Shortly after, they arrive at Reizo's house, where Kenjiro tells Yaiba things are going to change from now on. "Welcome to your new home." Yaiba goes into the house and looks around, impressed by how nice it is, but is immediately thrown to the ground by his short-ass great-grandma who has never met him before. She asks Yaiba who he is. Kenjiro walks in later, and after Granny sees the striking resemblance and ugliness between them, she immediately knows that he is Kenjiro's son and tells Reizo and Sayaka they should all keep them company and are welcome. About an hour later in the dojo, Yaiba is really excited to see the other samurais as he's eager to find a samurai who's either as strong as him or even stronger. Kenjiro tests them all by tapping them on the back and they all fail except one who manages to block. Kenjiro suggests Yaiba spar with that guy. Reizo doesn't think that's a good idea because that guy is Muto, the dojo's best samurai. Granny doubts that Yaiba would even stand a chance against him, but his father is confident in him. He sets a deal with Granny. If Yaiba wins against Muto in the sparring match, then they'll all live here together. But if he loses, they'll get lost. Granny agrees and tells Muto that he has permission to go full force, but Muto doesn't understand why because he's just sparring against a little kid. Yaiba stands there bored, telling Muto to hurry it up already and stop behaving like a gorilla, which makes Muto get really annoyed. Granny suggests that Yaiba wear some safety pads, but he replies, "Nah, Dad always says those are for weaklings. And besides, I've never lost a match to a gorilla, so I think I'll be just fine." This overconfidence pisses Granny off. The match commences and Yaiba starts things off by taking really heavy swings at Muto. Granny and Sayaka observe his fighting style and see that it's not the most efficient because Muto can easily see his attacks coming from a mile away. Meanwhile, Yaiba smiles, saying he's impressed at how strong Muto is because he hasn't even been able to land a single hit. Muto decides to go on the offensive this time and Yaiba starts to struggle and even gets slightly overpowered. But then Muto says something that makes Yaiba's two brain cells click. "We're not in the jungle, you dumbass." This makes Yaiba realize that in order to win this fight, he can't fight Muto the same way he fought the animals in the jungle. He needs to adapt. So after that realization, he turns his back on Muto and takes a deep stance, which leaves everyone watching with their jaws dropped. Granny sees this and smirks, thinking Yaiba has either just given up or is just a dumbass. Still, she signals Mudo to deliver the final blow now that Yaiba is open. Mudo lifts his sword with all his might, ready to deliver the final blow, and right as he does, Yaiba dodges it, leaving Mudo with a shocked look on his face. Yaiba then launches his sword and delivers the final blow to Mudo, which is delivered with so much power it breaks his sword and even sends him flying upwards into the roof, leaving everyone watching stunned. Yaiba realizes that he's won, so he hits his signature emotes while everyone just stares at him in disbelief of what just happened. Granny has never seen such raw strength and uncultivated swordsmanship in such a young boy before. Meanwhile, Kenjiro has just finished downing a full crate of beers and is drunk, but still proud of his son for beating Mudo. Reizo facepalms. Now he's going to have to hold his end of the bet and let them live in his house indefinitely. The worst part is that they're not even going to help with the rent. Sayaka notices that Yaiba is doing something strange. He has tied Mudo to the roof and is holding a wooden stick. She asks him what he's about to do, but he replies, saying it's survival of the fittest, just like he does in the jungle. This pisses Sayaka off, so she tells him, "You're not in the jungle anymore, you fool." In the middle of the night, while Sayaka is trying to get her beauty sleep, she wakes up because Yaiba is training loudly on the roof for some reason. She comes out of her room, which shakes the house a bit and causes him to fall off the roof. She scolds him. Do you know what time it is? But Yaiba doesn't understand what she means because in the jungle, there's no such thing as sleep. Later that morning, it's now time for breakfast, so Yaiba rushes in to get his, but Sayaka stops him to ask a question about something that has been bothering her ever since he arrived. Why do you have a tiger with you? This is a tale that Yaiba loves to tell, so he starts off by narrating that one day, when he was in the jungle, he was trying to catch some fish but didn't have any luck. That's when the tiger snuck up on him and tried to eat him, but Yaiba accidentally blocked the attack by using his spear to hit the tiger right in the balls. The tiger fell into the water and started to drown. The movements of his actually helped get the fish out of the water. Ever since that day, he and the tiger started to spend quality time together, and just like that, they became best of friends. But judging by the look on Sayaka's face, she doesn't look satisfied by that story. Just then, Reizo realizes that he hasn't seen Kenjiro, Yaiba's dad, all morning. That's when one of the maids comes to drop off a letter that he left for them before he left. Long story short, he set out into the city for a little while and left Yaiba behind, which pisses Reizo off because it's awful parenting. But Yaiba tells him not to be so hard on his dad because when they were in the jungle, he was always going off and leaving him alone on his own. A couple of hours later, Yaiba follows Sayaka out into the streets because he's curious about where she's going dressed up like that. "I'm going to school, you dumbass," she replies. Yaiba has spent his entire life in the jungle and has never been to a school before, so he asks her what it's all about. She tells him that it's a place where people learn, but Yaiba doesn't understand what that even means, so he takes it the wrong way and thinks she means that it's a place filled with really strong warriors who come together to train. Hearing this, Sayaka decides to troll him a bit. She turns back and tells him that it's a place filled with a ton of strong monsters and samurai, and that he wouldn't even stand a chance against any of them. Shortly after, they arrive at the school, and Yaiba is shocked as he sees just how large a school building is. Some of Sayaka's friends come over, take a single look at Yaiba, and think he's really cute. Yaiba sees them and acknowledges that this is his second ever encounter with girls, so he starts to sniff them all, which makes them all jeer with excitement. But this is all a little too much to handle, so Sayaka just drags him out of there while the girls just stare, wondering what they did wrong. It's now time for Sayaka to go to one of her classes, so she tells Yaiba to wait there for her, but he disagrees, saying that he came here to protect her, so he can't just leave her alone like that. Sayaka realizes that she only brought this upon herself, so she gives in and takes him into the dojo classroom, telling him to just be quiet and watch. Yaiba goes inside and immediately gets excited because he sees a lot of samurai stuff, just like what they have in the house. Sayaka replies, "That's nice, but I've got to go change." So she walks toward the changing room, telling him to just stay there and stay quiet. Right as Sayaka is about to take her top off, she shakes a bit as she hears Yaiba in the changing room with her, telling her, "What's up, fine shit?" He stops catcalling her and sees that she's starting to get a little angry, which confuses him because his pops had always told him that girls were into that kind of stuff. Sayaka then summons her inner chakra and kicks him out of the room. He heads back into the dojo classroom and sees some samurai swords. He picks one up when a tall guy who's trying to pull off Satama's haircut comes up behind him and says, "That's dojo property. Keep your hands off." Yaiba jumps back and assumes a battle stance. Sayaka comes out of the changing room and sees that in the 5 minutes she left Yaiba alone, he's about to go head-to-head with the samurai national champion. After Yaiba learns that this guy is really strong, he immediately asks for a sparring match, but the guy walks away. "You're not worth my time." Yaiba then tries to deliver a sneak attack, but the guy quickly adjusts his pivot and counters the attack, knocking the sword out of Yaiba's hands. The Saitama dude looks at Yaiba with a serious face and tells him to get out of here because this isn't a kiddie playground. Yaiba smirks. This is the first time anyone has ever been able to knock a sword out of his hands. Yaiba introduces himself and asks for the guy's name. "I'm Takeshi Onimaru," he says, and just like that, Yaiba begins his lifelong rivalry with Onimaru. Quick backstory about Onimaru: he currently lives alone and takes care of his bird poultry, while his sister is away for the kendo seminars, but at least he texts her every day to update her on what's going on. He tells her that this year's national kendo competition is coming up, and as usual, he plans on securing the first place slot. His entire extended family has always supported him and are going to be watching the event, so he knows he can't screw this up and he won't be defeated. The next day at school, Yaiba is busy annoying Sayaka as usual. Then as he runs off, he accidentally bumps into his arch-nemesis, Onimaru. Yaiba is still hungry for a duel with him, so he draws his sword asking for one, but Onimaru just replies he'd rather barf, and besides, he's way stronger than him. He then walks away, going up the stairs while Yaiba follows, having an annoyed look on his face. Yaiba tries a sneak attack, but Onimaru already saw that coming, so he swiftly sidesteps it and knocks Yaiba off his feet, making him lose the little aura he had left. Then before Onimaru leaves, he tells Yaiba to come back after training for a couple decades, and maybe he'll be stronger enough. After that, he walks away while giving off an evil laugh. At this point, Yaiba is really pissed off. Sayaka has a concerned look on her face, but she thinks that Onimaru isn't willing to spar with Yaiba, probably because he has nationals coming up, so he just wants to stay focused. She tries convincing Yaiba to just leave the dude alone, but our boy just ignores it and looks back at her, having a crazy look on his face, saying he's got an idea. A couple hours later at the Shoryuken dojo, Sayaka is starting to get worried because she hasn't seen Yaiba at all since their last encounter, and she just knows he's about to do some dumb shit. In the boys' locker room, Onimaru can't find any of his samurai gear, making him feel frustrated. Then one of the snitches tells him that he saw Yaiba with him earlier in the hallway. This is confirmed when Onimaru finds a letter that Yaiba left behind which says, "Hey you idiot, it's Yaiba." Onimaru crumples the paper in anger and then rushes outside, where he sees the first part of his training gear sitting right out in the open. Onimaru is confused why it's just out there like that. Then as he bends down to pick it up, he triggers the trap set for him. A bucket of water falling from above, but he swiftly dodges it and says it'll take a lot more than that to catch him lacking, with a smirk on his face. Meanwhile, Sayaka has already started training in the dojo, and she's worried because it's been close to 30 minutes since practice started and Onimaru and Yaiba are nowhere to be seen. Onimaru is seen dashing through the hallways as he sees the next piece of his equipment, but right before he gets there, he triggers the tripwire that was set, causing the lockers to fall onto him, but luckily he escapes right in the nick of time. As he picks up the gear, a hidden arrow springs out, but he dodges it, so it only manages to graze his face. He then smirks and hits the most iconic anime one-liner, saying things just got interesting. Yaiba sits on top of the roof, wondering what's taking Onimaru so long to get there, but just then, Onimaru bursts through the door, carrying his gear and panting heavily. Yaiba yet again asks for a sparring match with him, but Onimaru refuses and just tells him to give him his gear back because he's not fighting a loser like him. That said, Yaiba throws his headgear off the building, and as he rushes to go get it, Yaiba kicks him in the shins, which makes him stumble a bit, but he's still able to grab the headgear. After that, he does a lot of unnecessary parkour, and even sticks the landing for 5 extra aura points, which makes everyone around stare in shock. But he immediately loses those aura points as he falls into the pit that Yaiba dug up for him. Definitely didn't see that one coming. Yaiba looks at him from above, asking him whether he wants to reconsider the sparring match, but Onimaru still refuses, so Yaiba just fills the hole with different sports balls and closes him in, after which he walks away. The next day, Onimaru is trying to feed his birds, but he can't hide the fact that he is so pissed off at Yaiba for what he pulled yesterday, saying if it's a fight he wants, he's gonna get it. Onimaru later realizes he's raising his voice at his birds, so he apologizes to them. A couple hours later, Sayaka is watering the street for some reason, but in the next moment, she's shocked to see Onimaru standing right in front of her asking for Yaiba. Sayaka tells him that Yaiba isn't at home right now, but right as Onimaru responds, he accidentally steps on Katagora, the family tiger. She's not in the best mood today, so she charges at Onimaru trying to attack, but using just 3 strikes. Onimaru puts her down for the count. Granny then walks in after seeing that display and tells Onimaru that a swordsman shouldn't be acting that way. She also overheard that he was looking for Yaiba, so she tells him she heard him mention he was heading to his house earlier. Right as he hears that, he immediately rushes back home before Yaiba can do anything dumb. After he leaves, Sayaka expresses her concern because she thinks Yaiba is going to get his ass beat by Anamaru, but Granny has faith in him and thinks it's actually going to be the other way around. Yaiba arrives at Anamaru's house looking for him and requesting a duel, but he doesn't find him there. Instead, he finds Shonosuke, his old vulture friend, who flew all the way from the jungle just to come and see him. As Anamaru rushes back home, he sees Yaiba flying on Shonosuke in the opposite direction, then a feather falls right in front of him, so he just knows they messed with his bird poultry. Anamaru gets home and sees that his bird poultry has been torn down. The leftover birds even have tears in their eyes because of the trauma they just witnessed. This only makes Anamaru's hatred for Yaiba grow even stronger. Yaiba also gets home and sees that Anamaru had hurt Katagura. Sayaka says it's only fair since he's been messing with him ever since he got here, but Yaiba doesn't care. He's holding a grudge. They both run towards each other and meet in the town square. They draw their swords, ready to fight. One of the police officers tries to separate the fight, but they just tell him to stay out of it. Their match starts with Yaiba delivering a strong kick to the face, but Anamaru calls him a cheat and tells him to only fight with his sword. Sword to sword, they are always evenly matched in power and technique as they dance all around the market square, blocking and dodging each other's attacks. Yaiba flips him onto a bus and they continue the fight there, but they are still an even match for each other. The bus takes a hard turn, making Yaiba fall into the neighboring truck filled with logs of wood. Yaiba, despite his small stature, manages to lift an entire log of wood and throws it at Anamaru. Anamaru easily uses his sword to slice it up, but after he does, Yaiba is nowhere to be seen. Yaiba hid behind one of the logs of wood Anamaru chopped up. He sneaks up behind and launches an overhead attack, but Anamaru still manages to block it. As a last resort, Yaiba decides to bite Anamaru right on his face, causing blood to leak out of his injury. After that, Anamaru is disoriented, so he throws a careless strike. Yaiba dodges it and quickly follows it up with a forehand strike, which connects on Anamaru's face, causing him to fall to his knees. Yaiba acknowledges that he has just defeated his arch-nemesis Anamaru, so he jumps up to celebrate, but unfortunately, he ends up splattered on a road sign, just like one of those old-timey cartoons. Later that evening, both Anamaru and Yaiba are seen whining like babies as they dress the wounds from their fight. Granny walks up to Yaiba. She heard about the fight, but she's not happy that he had to bite him in the head to win, so she doesn't consider that a victory for him. That said, Yaiba is determined to defeat Anamaru fair and square the next time they fight. After Sayaka is done dressing his wound, he, Katagura, and Shonosuke go up to the roof for some training, but he kicks both their asses in record time. That training method has become way too easy for him now, so he tries blindfolding himself and telling them to attack him, but they aren't too sure why he would want that. Sayaka is also curious why he's doing that, so Granny explains to her that he's training his Shingen. His Shingen opens one's mind perception. If Yaiba masters it, he would be able to sense his opponent and anticipate their next move. It's just like what he did when he fought the samurai earlier. It's a very critical skill in sword fighting. Yaiba tries fighting Shonosuke and Katagura using his perception, but he hasn't mastered it, so he quickly gets knocked down while they celebrate with laughter. Still with that, Yaiba isn't discouraged and says, "Let's try that again." Sayaka observes him and smiles because she just realized how determined Yaiba is, but it doesn't take Yaiba long to piss her off yet again because he refuses to take his blindfold off even at the dinner table, so he's just using his fork to poke around her food. That night, Sayaka is naked in the bathtub, reminiscing all the events that happened today, but just then, Yaiba walks in with his blindfold on and clothes off, and he's wearing a blindfold, so he doesn't even know she's in there. Sayaka blushes as she takes a look at Yaiba's tiny soldier, after which she kicks him out. Meanwhile, Anamaru is currently being tormented in his dreams by Yaiba because of the fight they had the other day. As the ghosts of Yaiba surround him and start biting him in unison, he jolts out of bed, saying, "Oh, it was just a dream." Anamaru doesn't want to be caught lacking, so he gets out of bed and immediately starts training while repeatedly saying in his head, "I'm going to get my revenge." Anamaru has always won every fight that he has fought, so the fact that he just lost to Yaiba in such an uncultured way pissed him off. He knows he needs to get strongest one way or another. It's a must. He gets a taunting image of Yaiba in his head again, so he crashes out and accidentally uses his sword to destroy one of the stone monuments in his home. After he calms down, he realizes that he may have overreacted a bit, but what he finds a lot more intriguing is the fact that there's a hidden staircase in the house that he never knew about. Curiosity gets the best of him, so he steps inside, wondering what this place is. He enters the main room and sees a bunch of statues of old Japanese gods surrounding a pretty cool-looking sword. The sword was too shiny not to touch, so Anamaru tries picking it up, but before he does, the statues start to speak to him, telling him that if he picks up that sword, he will inherit all the power from them and become the strongest swordsman to walk the earth. Onimaru hears this and realizes that with this sword, Yaeba won't stand a chance against him, so he places his hand on the handle, trying to pick it up. A bright blue blinding light emerges from the sword as he picks it up. His body then starts to transform and undergo changes. His eyes turn to a bright red color. After he pulls it out of the ground, there's a bright explosion, and once it settles, Onimaru is holding the sword confidently in the air as it has a bright blue aura around it. But there's also something different about Onimaru. He now has two ugly-ass horns on his head and a striking new confidence. Nothing can stop him now. Meanwhile, Yaeba's granny looks through his magical sword and can tell that the vile Oni has been awakened. The next day, Yaeba is seen on the roof practicing his blindfold fighting technique known as the Kekai. The Kekai is a special technique that marks the finite zone in which he can sense an opponent's attack. So that invisible barrier is referred to as the Kekai. Still, Granny decides to perform a small test on our boy Yaeba, so she throws a rock at him. To both Granny and Sayaka's surprise, Yaeba senses the stone coming and instantly blocks it like a boss, but instantly loses all his aura as the stone comes back down to hit him in the head. The next day at school, Yaeba arrives and all the class baddies surround him, saying he looks really adorable. Sayaka sees this and just stares, wondering what those girls see in a dumbass like him. After that, some of Yaeba's pervy classmates show him some explicit photos of girls with huge water jugs. Yaeba looks at them and casually says that he often takes baths with Sayaka and the ones she has are nowhere near the shapes or sizes of the ones in the magazine. Sayaka obviously overhears this and gets pretty embarrassed, so she's now about to smack our boy over the head with a guitar, but she instantly freezes in shock as Yaeba detects her even without looking back. Just then, some of their classmates draw attention to the window, so Yaeba comes to take a look and sees Onimaru walking into school with those ugly horns on his head. Yaeba observes that Onimaru has gotten bigger and has a shady aura around him, so he naturally starts to get a little intimidated. Onimaru unsheaths his sword and challenges Yaeba to a duel to determine once and for all who's stronger. Yaeba naturally gets excited at the mention of a duel, so he picks his sword up and immediately jumps out of the window. Yaeba lunges at him, but instantly gets startled as Onimaru uncases his sword and lands a swift strike. However, Yaeba manages to dodge it at the last second, so it only manages to graze him a bit. Yaeba repositions and yells at Onimaru for playing dirty by using a real sword instead of a fake samurai one. Sayaka and the others realize that's a real sword, so they start to get worried about what the outcome of this fight would look like. Yaeba staggers back, Onimaru lands an overhead strike, but Yaeba is able to dodge and then grabs a steel pipe to use as a makeshift sword. Onimaru sees it and scoffs, "You think you can beat me with that piece of trash," he says. He follows that up with another strike. This time it grazes him on the arm. At this point, Yaeba is really starting to get concerned because he can't even track any of Onimaru's movements before he makes them. With that in mind, he closes his eyes and tries to focus on the Kite technique to try and track his movements. Onimaru could tell Yaeba is about to use the Kite technique, but he just scoffs because he doesn't think that's going to be enough to take him down. He starts with an overhead strike, but Yaeba easily catches it, with his eyes closed for that matter. At first, Onimaru has a shocked expression, then later he smirks, in his mind saying, "Things just got interesting." Onimaru proceeds to launch a flurry of attacks on him, but Yaeba blocks every single one of them without opening an eye. At a point, our boy manages to counter Onimaru's attack by almost landing a direct blow to the face. Following that, Yaeba jumps up into the air and then starts to take the offensive position, and Onimaru is now starting to sweat. After they're separated, Onimaru smirks in confidence because he knows he has something up his sleeve. In the next moment, he draws his sword and unleashes its magic, which sends a swift gust of wind straight at Yaeba, which sends him flying into a wall. Yaeba falls to the ground and Onimaru stands over him, telling him to be a man and finish the fight. Yaeba can sense Onimaru is about to launch another wind attack, so he knows he needs to slash the wind before it gets to him. Just as he predicted, Onimaru launches another wind attack. Yaeba uses his steel pipe to try and stop it, but Onimaru is just too powerful, so he is sent flying backwards deeper into the wall. Now Onimaru plans on ending things, so he draws his sword, ready to deliver the final blow. Sayaka spectates, begging Onimaru to stop, saying he's proved his point so he should just let Yaeba go. Well, that pisses Onimaru off, so he tells her to shut the F up, after which he attacks her by sending a slash of wind. The wind shatters the glass of the windows, scaring off all of Sayaka's classmates, but Sayaka doesn't run. With tears in her eyes, she begs Onimaru to let Yaeba go. Yaeba, although in a dire condition, tells Sayaka to get back, he's going to handle this. Onimaru launches his final attack, a gust of wind that Yaiba is unable to control, so it splits the entire school building in half, sending Sayaka flying with a pretty rough landing. Sayaka musters up some strength, looks up to the sky, and sees that Yaiba has been rescued at the last minute by his little bird friend. Onimaru looks up at him and just starts to laugh maniacally, because he acknowledges this as the first battle he won against Yaiba. Back at home, our boy is pretty sad about losing to Onimaru. He calls himself names such as pathetic and weakling, then proceeds to make a really ugly face while crying. Sayaka and the others see Yaiba sobbing and share feelings of empathy for him. But that's when Yaiba's dad comes out of nowhere with a bright smile on his face and says, "My boy is growing." After that, he sits down and starts by informing Yaiba that what he experienced in his battle with Onimaru was Fujinkan. It's a technique that has immense power and can stir up storms like the god of the wind. Supposedly, its powers have been sealed away, but Onimaru had somehow managed to awaken it. After hearing this story, Yaiba's jaw drops as he wonders whether this means that sword is unbeatable. Kenjiro replies, saying that against the Fujinkan, only the Rajikan sword stands a chance. The Rajikan is a sword that, once grasped, darkens the skies and unleashes a flurry of lightning. Kenjiro thinks back and recalls that an old guy named Miyamoto has the sword. Yaiba is eager to know where he can find the sword, but his father warns Yaiba, with a serious look on his face, even if he was somehow able to get the sword, it would take him years to learn how to safely wield it. Yaiba claps back, saying, "I don't care how many years it takes, I'm going to find that sword and use it to kick Onimaru's butt." Kenjiro finally gives in, saying the sword is up at Mount Tengu. Sayaka hears this and says she knows the place. Yaiba just smiles maniacally, because he knows he's going to make her take him there anyways. Meanwhile, Onimaru is busy checking himself out in the mirror, wondering what he's going to do with all this power he now has. That in mind, he thinks to put his new power to the test. In the next scene, Sayaka wakes up tied to Katagora's back as Yaiba walks in front of them, saying she's going to take him to Mount Tengu to go and get the magic sword. Along the way, Sayaka complains of her clothes being too messy, so Yaiba brings out a couple of clothes he got from her room, but Sayaka doesn't really like the fact Yaiba was rummaging through her clothes. But still, she has no choice but to put them on. Yaiba steps away to go find some food for them to eat, all while Sayaka stands there wondering whether this Miyamoto guy is actually in these woods. About an hour later, Yaiba manages to catch some meat, he roasts it, and everyone seems to be enjoying it. Just then, they all hear a rustling sound. They look back to see what it was. A creepy old grandpa then swoops in from behind and steals their meat. Yaiba spots him at the top of a tree and draws his sword, ready for battle. Sayaka then steps in and tells him to stop because that's the old man Miyamoto his Daz was talking about earlier. Miyamoto jumps down furious. "I'm not that old," he says. Yaiba confidently states that he's here to obtain the Rajikan sword. Sayaka proceeds to beg Miyamoto, saying he should just give them the sword and then they'll be out of his way. Miyamoto surprisingly agrees, so he tells them to follow him. He takes them to his house, but it's more of a tree house. Yaiba finds it to be kind of strange, but Sayaka is actually really fascinated by it. What she finds even more fascinating is the fact that he built it all by himself. That aside, Miyamoto goes on to inform Yaiba that many swordsmen have attempted to get past him in their quest to obtain the Rajikan sword, but every last one of them has been reduced to dust. Only a legendary samurai can wield the sword. For over 400 years, he has watched over that sword, waiting for the legendary samurai to come and claim it. The old man's full name is Musashi Miyamoto. Sayaka instantly recognizes that name as the great swordsman, but Yaiba, on the other hand, has never heard of this guy. But he doesn't really care anyway. He just tells Miyamoto to tell him where the sword is so he can go and get it. Just then, Sayaka spots it out in the open, stabbed into the ground. They all immediately head over to it. Sayaka, first of all, tries pulling it out of the ground, but she immediately gets struck by a bright stream of lightning. After that, Miyamoto explains that the blade strikes anyone who's unworthy. Miyamoto thinks them being here is a huge waste of time, so he tells them to leave. But just then, Yaiba pulls it out of the ground with ease. Sayaka is excited, Miyamoto drops his jaw, falls to the ground, and starts to think about his life. Even he wasn't able to pull that sword out in his prime, but this kid has pulled it out with ease. Could he be the legendary samurai he's waited centuries for? That's when he makes up his mind. He's going to mold Yaiba up to be the strongest samurai he's ever known. But honestly, Yaiba might have too much brain rot for that. After that, Yaiba tries to use the sword, but it's so heavy that he falls down with it. Miyamoto sees this and can tell that he's several light years away from mastering that sword. In order for him to brand the sword, he needs to first of all forge a spirit capable of conquering the thunder god's power within. That said, our boy decides to lock in. He draws the sword and maintains a deep stance while trying to summon the thunder god. The clouds get really dark. Yaiba starts to get struck by some thick yellow lightning, while everyone around just looks on. He manages to control the lightning and launches a thick beam of electricity across the floor. Miyamoto can see Yaiba is losing control of himself, so he lunges forward, delivering a swift strike to the back, which makes Yaiba go unconscious. Meanwhile, Onimaru is deep in the magic dungeon where he has just learned about the Raijinkan sword. He knows that if he has that sword, he would be unstoppable. It's a must for him to have it. Meanwhile, Yaiba has finally woken up. However, Miyamoto gives him some good news. The Thunder God has acknowledged him. But in order for him to wield the sword properly, he needs to either conquer its power by true courage or fall prey to its strength and become a demon, which is what happened to Onimaru and why he has those ugly horns on his head. As Yaiba is right now, he has zero chance of winning, but that doesn't demotivate him. He has a determined look on his face while he confidently says he's not going to lose to the Thunder God. He will wield the Raijinkan, and he will defeat Onimaru. Onimaru is still as thirsty for power as ever. He's in his magic dungeon and has just summoned 8 mystic ogres, with their sole purpose being to hunt down the Raijinkan sword. He pairs each of the ogres with some demon assistant to ensure the success of this mission. Meanwhile, Yaiba is deep in the woods, training with Miyamoto to become the next legendary samurai. His first test is to cross the river by stepping only on the lily pads, but Yaiba fails on his first try and doesn't even understand how he's supposed to pull that off. Miyamoto explains to Yaiba that he's not supposed to walk across, but rather whisk himself across and move like the wind. He demonstrates by leaping across the river, moving as light as a feather. He tells Yaiba that if he wants to learn how to do this, he needs to believe in himself, because even the slightest doubt in himself would prevent him from learning how to properly wield the sword. Yaiba is now more determined than ever, so he steps in the river with confidence, but falls into the water like a dumbass. At the same time, Sayaka and the animals decide to start preparing dinner. The scene shifts to the town parliament having a meeting discussing the national budget. That's when Onimaru literally bursts through the door with an ugly-ass monster suit on. The parliament security take one look at him and can see that he's now a full-on monster, so they fire some bullets at him, but he easily blocks them. He throws a slash of wind at the ceiling, which makes it rain glass, all while Onimaru says, "From now onwards, you shall obey me." Back in the forest, Yaiba expresses frustration, saying he gives up because he couldn't get it on the first try. Miyamoto looks over his impatient behavior and says that Yaiba reminds him of another samurai he has trained named Kojiro. As expected, Yaiba has no idea who that is, and Miyamoto almost chokes hearing Yaiba doesn't know the great Kojiro Sasaki. Kojiro was a once-in-a-generation swordsman. He was also really handsome too, but of course not as striking as Miyamoto. He was impulsive just like Yaiba and would always rely on his strength without focusing on tactics and strategy, and unfortunately, that was what led to his downfall. Miyamoto hands Yaiba a shed sword known as a scabbard. It's basically a sword Yaiba can use for the meantime until he is able to wield the Raijinkan. That evening, Sayaka is busy making dinner in the kitchen. That's when she gets 2 unexpected visitors. A 10 out of 10 Japanese baddie and a weird guy in a red cloak. Sayaka comes to the door, and the lady casually asks the whereabouts of the Raijinkan sword. Sayaka replies, casually telling them it's currently with Yaiba, but little does she know that these are 2 of the evil ogres Onimaru set out to obtain the Raijinkan sword. Sayaka accepts them with open arms, telling them to come inside and wait for Yaiba to get back. Sayaka invites them in for dinner. The guy in the red cloak is easily stuffing his face with a bowl of ramen. Sayaka suggests he take his cloak off, he's probably really hot in it. He thanks her for being so kind and agrees to take it off, but the lady uses her monster tail to slap him back to his senses. Just then, Yaiba walks in, saying he's starving. Sayaka welcomes him in and tells him that they have company. Miyamoto hasn't had any action in a long time, so he gets a little overexcited when he sees the beautiful lady inside the hut. But that's when the 2 guests decide to show their true colors. They launch an attack at Yaiba, throwing him out of the hut. Miyamoto takes an offensive stance against them and asks who they are. The guy in the cloak finally reveals himself to be a fat-ass crocodile named Garoda. The once beautiful lady transforms into a giant snake named Zapapukamus. They expected Yaiba and the others to be afraid or intimidated, but instead they just burst into laughter at how absurd their names sound. This pisses the ogres off, so they unleash their minions. Sayaka sees that things just got a lot more serious, so she tells Yaiba to stop laughing and focus. Right before they can get attacked, Yaiba springs into the air and lands a coordinated attack on the first wave of minions. Miyamoto observes that move from Yaiba and informs Sayaka that it's called the Shoken, a technique that uses laughter to agitate one's opponent and create an opening. Yeah, it's a sneaky move to use, but throwing one's opponent off guard is the most basic of the basics. Miyamoto watches how easily Yaiba is taking the minions down. Maybe he was wrong about Yaiba all this while. This time Zeppapo strikes, catching Yaiba off guard, but luckily, Miyamoto was there to bail him out. At the same time, Sayaka gets surrounded by some of the minions. She bluffs, saying they should get back because she knows jujitsu. One of them grabs her from behind. Katagura sees this and immediately springs into action trying to save her, but by the time he gets there, she already took him down with a single strike to the head. Meanwhile, Jiroda starts to fight Yaiba. He uses his long-ass tongue to grab the sheath of the sword, forcing Yaiba to unsheath the sword and unleash the power of the Thunder God. Miyamoto sees this and knows this is bad news because Yaiba hasn't been able to contain the power of the Thunder God, meaning that he'll likely get consumed by it. Yaiba gets consumed by the Thunder God, just like Miyamoto expected. He's about to deliver a very deadly slash of lightning, but luckily, Miyamoto is there just in time to knock him unconscious. But strangely, Yaiba regains consciousness and is now stuck in the Thunder God mode, meaning that he has no control over his mind or body. He roars and then sends a thunderbolt towards Miyamoto. He swiftly dodges it, but it ends up setting his treehouse on fire. Yaiba starts to attack everyone in sight, including the ones on his side. Miyamoto looks at Yaiba and shakes his head. Yaiba is now too far gone. The Thunder God is going to devour him if this keeps up. In the next moment, Yaiba locks eyes with Jiroda and is about to land a fatal blow on him, but Miyamoto steps in at the last second and protects him. He further asks Jiroda for a temporary truce, saying they'll need to work together to defeat Yaiba or else they're cooked. Jiroda understands the situation and agrees. Given the current situation, they are left with no other choice but to cut Yaiba down. They both charge at him, but Yaiba is somehow able to handle both of them at the same time, after which he launches a heavy thunderbolt, which destroys a tree that almost crushes Katagura and Sayaka. Miyamoto now has a new plan. He attacks from above while Jiroda attacks from the side. Jiroda sticks to the plan and stalls Yaiba for a second. Then in the next moment, Miyamoto jumps in about to deliver the final blow, but Yaiba still manages to block it. As their swords collide, the orb containing the power of the Thunder God falls out, so Yaiba returns back to his senses and is no longer under the influence of the Thunder God. Jiroda and Miyamoto jump up in celebration at the sight of this, but immediately separate themselves after they realize they technically still are enemies. Right now, Zeppo's minions have taken Sayaka hostage, so she tells Yaiba to give up the sword if he ever wants to see her again. She then instructs Jiroda to get rid of them, but Jiroda remembers how it was Miyamoto that saved him when Yaiba went out of control. Zeppo can tell Jiroda is now having mixed feelings, so she charges towards him, but Yaiba appears in front protecting him. "Isn't he one of you?" Yaiba asks. Zeppo replies, saying Lord Onimura has no time for pathetic, sentimental fools. The battle between Zeppo and Yaiba begins. Yaiba runs into the woods as a way of drawing Zeppo away from the others. Yaiba passes through the woods and easily defeats some of the minions, but when it comes to facing Zeppo, she's a lot stronger than he expected, so he's easily struck down. Yaiba distances himself from Zeppo as he thinks of his next move. He sees that Zeppo counters every attack he's made, so he charges at her, but this time tries something new. He spins the blade while running at her. He is knocked back again by Zeppo, but this time the blade maintains its centrifugal force and continues to spin. Some of the minions come up from behind. Yaiba throws the spinning blade at them, and it's so sharp that it's able to slice an entire tree into multiple pieces. As Yaiba chases the minions down, Miyamoto observes his technique and informs Sayaka that it's an old spear fighting technique that uses centrifugal force to keep the blade spinning. Zeppo can tell there's no way he's going to defeat them at this point, so he thinks he might be able to take some credit if he returns to Onimura with the Raijinkan orb. Yaiba sees that Zeppo is trying to get away with the orb. The only way he can get to him is by crossing the river, so without thinking, he swiftly steps across the lily pads and reaches the other side in a matter of seconds. Then he uses his Senpuken technique to slice Zeppo clean in half. After that, Zeppo transforms back into a normal snake. Yaiba releases him back into the wilderness and tells him to stay like that. Later that night, they all camp outside because Yaiba did burn down Miyamoto's treehouse. But Miyamoto isn't angry about it. He knows it wasn't his fault. Just then, Sayaka shows them real-time news coverage where Onimura broke into the National Diet Building. Onimura has now transformed into a full-on monster, and on seeing this, Yaiba knows he has to hasten his training with the Raijinkan because that's the only way he'll be able to defeat him. Hearing this, Miyamoto makes up his mind and decides that they're going to Ganryu Island to obtain a secret weapon that is made in the same way as the Raijinkan. Miyamoto has hope that it could provide a hint as to how to better wield the Raijinkan. Miyamoto can't say for sure Yaiba will master the sword, but he definitely does have some potential. Then the next morning, they begin their journey to Ganryu Island. But as they travel, an airborne drone is seen floating above them, monitoring their every move. Deep in AnimeRadar-Recap's lair, his other ogre servants report to him saying the Raijinkan sword is now in Yaiba's possession. AnimeRadar hears this and finds it absurd because he doesn't think Yaiba would ever be able to wield that sword. Mr. Spider, the ogre in charge of all the planning, says according to his calculations, Yaiba is as good as dead because he sent one of the strongest ogres, Mr. Slug, to go and retrieve the sword. Mr. Spider pulls up a video of Mr. Slug, confident that he'll be able to take Yaiba down in record time. AnimeRadar takes a look at this and is more concerned as to why no one is assisting Mr. Slug. Mr. Spider replies, saying that's because it took him quite a while to get there because he is a slug after all. AnimeRadar still can't get over the fact that he was so confident in Zuppo to get the sword, but she was unsuccessful, and to make matters worse, Hiroda has now even joined Yaiba's side. Hearing this, Mr. Spider just cackles, saying it was all part of his plan. Meanwhile, Yaiba has been battling Mr. Slug for the past 30 minutes now and hasn't been able to land a single blow because its mammoth, slime-covered bulk can resist any attack. Luckily, the group is smart enough to know that slugs hate salt, so they throw several bags of salt into the sky. Yaiba immediately catches on and uses his Senpuken technique to split open all the bags of salt, allowing it to fall onto the slug, making him shrink down to his initial form. They all stare at tiny Mr. Slug in awe. He knows he has been defeated, so he immediately scurries off, saying he'll have his revenge. AnimeRadar watched all that on the screen and isn't happy about it, so he further asks Mr. Spider whether he has a plan B or not. Mr. Spider tells AnimeRadar to rest assured, he has just the perfect plan. After a long day, the gang walks home while the sun sets. Yaiba complains about how hungry he is. Sayaka spots two guys walking past them, heading into a hot spring. She would kill to take a bath, but Minamoto tells her to can it because he doesn't have any longer to spend on that. Just then, they run into the overly excited owner. He thinks they were about to head into the hot spring, so he congratulates them, saying they are his 1 millionth customers, so he'll be having them all as special guests. Sayaka tries to explain that they don't have any money to pay, but the owner excitedly tells her to shut up because for this time only it's going to be free for them. They all agree, so the maids guide them along the way. Inside, Miyamoto and Jiroda are just chilling, while Yaiba is busy goofing off as usual. Miyamoto tells Jiroda to test Yaiba, so he tries a sneak attack on Yaiba, making him get startled and fall into the water. Miyamoto comments, saying he'll need to do a lot more work on his balance if he ever wants to become the strongest samurai. Then in the distance, a dark figure with glowing red eyes appears to have been watching them this entire time. At the same time, Sayaka is busy taking a bath. The dark figure watches over her like a hawk. She gets the hint that she's being watched, so she looks around, but there's no one there. She starts to assume that it was Yaiba, so she throws a water bucket at him. At first, Yaiba gets angry for being hit even when he didn't do anything, but then he starts to wonder why she's even mad because she doesn't even have anything worth seeing. This situation has given Miyamoto an idea. He tells them that his next training task is to climb up that slippery wall as quickly as he can. He tells Jiroda to join in on it as well. Yaiba is a crazy for competition, so he immediately makes his way up the wall, only to see Sayaka and the others waiting for him there with their water hoses fully loaded up. They start to spray him, but our boy is somehow able to swim on the hose water midair. Sayaka blocks the water supply, causing Yaiba to fall to the ground and lose all his aura. Meanwhile, the old man looks through the bamboo sticks for a quick sneak peek, but unfortunately for him, she saw this coming and ends up slapping him in the face. After they get into their robes and are served with a full-on buffet. Everyone except Yaiba, of course, who has only been served one bowl of rice. Sayaka tells him that's punishment for looking on her earlier, even though it was actually Miyamoto who was spying at her. Back at AnimeRadar-Recap's lair, Mr. Starfish informs his colleague that he has been spying on Yaiba and the others for the entirety of today, and he can confirm that he is the one with the Raijinkan sword, and for some reason, he even takes it with him into the bath. That aside, he puts on a serious face while saying they have to figure out a way to get the Raijinkan sword. However, the major problem is Yaiba's Senpuken technique. The other ogres start to brainstorm, wondering whether it would be possible for them to get the Raijinkan sword without having to fight Yaiba. They start to think that if they could transform like how Mr. Snake did, things would work out a lot better. But even with that, they would have to fight the moment they reveal themselves. Then after planning for a while, their brain cells finally click and they get an idea and start to plot it together. Meanwhile, Yaiba has just devoured several bowls of white rice because although Sayaka said it was okay for him to eat rice, she never specified the limit. Just then, the overexcited owner pops out of nowhere to inform them that they are holding a special event made just for them named Kimatamashi. And if they make it through, they would get to experience their secret and secluded hot spring. The owner claims that it does stuff like loosen stiff shoulders, relieve backs, and even gives impeccable skin. With that said, Yaiba asks the owner whether this kimonomeshi thing tastes good, but Miyamoto informs him that it's not a food. Kimonomeshi should be considered something like a test of strength. However, it doesn't test one's physical strength, but rather what you have in your heart. It still sounds like a load of fun to Yaiba, so he suggests that Sayaka comes along too. Judging by the look Sayaka has on her face, she's not too sure about it, but the manager tries to persuade her, saying it's an extremely special hot spring, one they won't find elsewhere. Miyamoto finds this to be an excellent idea and also a good way for Yaiba to show Sayaka that he can be a good escort. Later that night, they arrive at the Kimonomeshi grounds, and it's honestly really spooky. Sayaka is starting to get a little scared, so she suggests that just go back. Just then, they get startled by Mr. Starfish. He lies, saying that he works for the inn and is here to explain how the kimonomeshi works. The rules are to proceed forward and do not turn back for any reason whatsoever. Now that the rules have been distributed, he tells them to get going. But before then, he asks Yaiba to allow him to hold that dangerous sword for him until he returns. Hearing this, Yaiba instinctively draws his blade, but then starts to wonder whether he may have a point. Mr. Starfish sees this and gives an internal evil smirk because he thinks Yaiba is going to be foolish enough to fall for this easy trick. He's going to get the Raijinkan sword by the easiest way possible. Then that evil smile quickly fades off his face as Yaiba keeps his sword with him and says he'll just keep it sheathed instead. Although this puts a hole in the first phase of Mr. Starfish's plan, he's not worried because the second phase is just about to start. Mr. Mantis is the star of the next phase. He's known for disguising himself and then taking down his foes. Mr. Starfish is confident that Mr. Mantis will be able to find an ingenious way to blend in, and if he does, the Raijinkan sword is easily theirs. Unknown to Yaiba, Mr. Mantis poses as an old granny who has sprained her leg, so he draws Yaiba in asking for some help. But Yaiba takes a look at him and starts to think this granny looks pretty weird. She's so big and has huge eyes. Then out of nowhere, Mr. Mantis reveals himself and decides to launch an attack, but Yaiba quickly uses his unsheathed sword to bonk him on the head, after which Sayaka scolds him for using his sword to hit an elderly woman. They both apologize for it and then keep on moving. Mr. Starfish comes over to Mr. Mantis and expresses pure respect for Mr. Mantis, because although he was hit really hard, he is still standing, making Mr. Starfish believe that he really is tougher than the rumors say. But just then, Mr. Mantis' cloak falls off and Mr. Starfish drops his jaw as he sees Mr. Mantis knocked out. Mr. Sea Cucumber is the nicest and most adorable of the group, so Mr. Starfish is eager to find out the kind of move he's going to pull. While Sayaka and Yaiba walk through the next part of the kimonomeshi, Mr. Starfish trails behind them, acknowledging that Mr. Sea Cucumber has just camouflaged himself and is eager to find out what clever disguise he picked out. Just then, he stops, realizing that he just stepped on something. He looks down and finds out that he has just stepped on Mr. Sea Cucumber. Then he screams out in mourning. Now that everyone else has been wiped out, Mr. Starfish is now the last resort. He hides in the bushes with a smirk on his face, confident that with this plan of his, they'll practically be handing the sword over to him. On getting to a certain point, they see a sign that tells them to put any sword they have into the crevice to complete the kimonomeshi task. Yaiba sticks the sword in, happily thinking that he has somehow solved a huge mystery. That's when Mr. Starfish comes out from behind and informs them that he filled the crevice with an exceptionally strong glue, so it would be almost impossible for him to remove it from there. He thinks he would easily be able to defeat Yaiba now that he's without the sword. Just then, two of his other ogre friends are now reunited with Mr. Starfish, and he sheds a tear seeing that his friends came back for him. Now that the three of them are together, they believe they are an unstoppable force, so they just tell Yaiba to surrender the swords so that no one has to get hurt. Meanwhile, Yaiba is busy trying to use his brute strength to remove the sword from the crevice. Yaiba gets an intense adrenaline rush and has now been able to lift the entire boulder, which ends up hitting Mr. Starfish and his colleagues as they try to attack. Against all odds, Yaiba has managed to free the Raijinkan sword. The ogres see this and cannot believe their eyes, but even with that, they know that Onimaru would have their heads if they return empty-handed. With that in mind, they both start to charge at Yaiba, knowing that they have no choice but to fight. But right before they manage to collide, they get really unlucky and get hit by the sprout of a geyser. Sayaka takes a look and sees that this might be the secret hot spring that the owner told them about a while ago. About an hour later, the three ogres wake in their resort room to see Yaiba staring down at them. The ogres immediately scoot back, accusing Yaiba of attacking them in their sleep, but Yaiba explains that he actually saved them. They hear that and are lost for words. Even though they plotted to steal the Raijinkan sword from him, he still decided to save them. Actually, it was Jiroda that vouched for them, and on hearing that, they immediately burst into tears, thanking them for showing such kindness. Kuroda further tells them that they don't have to follow AnimeRadar if they don't want to. "You are free to choose your own path," he says. Mr. Starfish plans on going back to his wife, and the others plan on sticking around with Yaiba until they reach Ganryu Island. Meanwhile, in AnimeRad's lair, AnimeRadar has been watching the entire thing and is really pissed off. Now he has no other choice but to summon his strongest ogre. In the next moment, a giant casket falls from the sky, it opens, and a dark figure with red glowing eyes emerges. AnimeRadar yells while giving it instructions, "Rip the Raijinkan sword off of Yaiba's baby hands and bring it to me." In this episode, the gang goes all the way to the Nagoya station to get some delicious chocolate sticks. They hardly ever come to this sort of fancy area, so Sayaka pulls her phone out to take some pics for the gram, but Yaiba has no idea what she's doing. Just then, their group selfie gets interrupted by one of the ogres who they have battled before, Mr. Slug. This time, Mr. Slug has a bright smirk on his face, confident that he's able to defeat Yaiba. He tells them that he no longer goes by the name Mr. Slug, he now has a shell, so he goes by Snaily now. The gang hears this and are short of words. Nonetheless, Yaiba remembers that his weakness is salt, so he tells Jiroda to bring over the salt bag. Yaiba takes it and lunges towards Snaily while throwing it all over him. Snaily sees this and has a confident smirk. He immediately hides in his shell, preventing his skin from coming into direct contact with the salt. Although Snaily is protecting himself while being in the shell, he is still plainly vulnerable for any attack that comes his way. That provides Yaiba the perfect opening for his signature Senpuken attack, striking his shell clean through. Miyamoto now watches Snaily slither away and starts to wonder whether this is actually the kind of people that AnimeRadar hires. Yaiba laughs maniacally, saying that the next time he lays his eyes on AnimeRadar, he's going to take him down with his Senpuken attack. But just then, they all hear a very deep voice coming from above. A dark character lands on top of the tallest building in the district. Miyamoto sees this and realizes this guy could be a final boss, so he tells Yaiba to get ready. The weird-looking guy at the top introduces himself as Mr. Bat. At the same time, he has just eaten Sayaka's Nagoya snack and he finds it to be quite delicious. After that, he points down at Yaiba and tells him that the Raijin sword belongs to none other than Lord AnimeRadar. "Now hand it over before anyone gets hurt," Mr. Bat says, confident that he'll easily be able to take it from him. But Yaiba is also quite confident that he'll be able to defeat him with just one strike of his Senpuken. Then in the next moment, they both draw their swords and clash, and with one strike, he manages to strike Yaiba in the arm, causing him to bleed out a bit. Both Yaiba and everyone watching can't believe it. Yaiba realizes Mr. Bat only managed to get a hit on him because he can fly, but Mr. Bat just tells him to shut the F up and then calls him an ugly wingless human. That said, Yaiba calls on Shaunusk and they adapt together, making Yaiba now able to fight in the air just like Mr. Bat. Seeing this, Mr. Bat is impressed, but he's still fairly convinced that Yaiba won't be able to defeat him. As Miyamoto watches the two collide, he can tell that Mr. Bat is quite fast, and he's even blocking Yaiba's attacks like they're nothing. However, if Yaiba is somehow able to cut through his defense, he might still stand a chance. Their battle continues for a while, and they seem to be an even match for each other. Then at a certain point, Yaiba sees the perfect opening for his Senpuken attack. Right as he is about to use it, one of Shaunusk's wings gets hit with a blade, and because of this, Yaiba realizes he can't use the Senpuken technique like that. Mr. Bat then follows up by launching an overhead kick that sends Yaiba crashing down into a neighboring store. As Yaiba lays there helpless, Mr. Bat figures that this is the best time to finish him off, so he lunges towards him and is about to deliver a very lethal blow, but Miyamoto appears just in time to block the attack. Mr. Bat is impressed at the level of skill, so he asks who this guy is. Miyamoto hears that question and decides to stroke his ego a bit, so he tells Mr. Bat that he's the incomparable bringer of terror, Musashi Miyamoto. Mr. Bat hears this and gives Miyamoto a huge hug because he's actually a really big fan of him. Mr. Bat would really love it if Miyamoto was one of his colleagues, but they're still enemies, so he takes a large bite out of Miyamoto's head, making him leap backwards and stagger a bit. Jiroda and the others come to check up on him, but Miyamoto kind of looks different. He staggers a bit once more and then turns towards them and gives a loud roar, his face being really pale and eyes a greenish color. Following that, Mr. Bat orders his minions to now attack Sayaka, but Yaiba swoops in to attack at the last minute, after which he hops on Shaunusk and flies away with Sayaka. Right as Yaiba thinks he's safe, Mr. Bat comes flying in from above and starts to attack them. At a certain point, Mr. Bat gets close enough that he ends up cutting off one of Shaunusk's wings. Yaiba and Sayaka then start plummeting to their doom. Yaiba grabs Sayaka and tells her not to let go, then they end up falling deep into the river. Meanwhile, Mr. Bat acknowledges that Yaiba managed to get away this time, but both Miyamoto and Shaunusk have now become his minions. With this, he knows he's one step closer to claiming the Raging Sword. Later that night, Yaiba and Sayaka sit together on the bridge. It's obvious they feel bothered about what happened to Shanosuke and Miyamoto. Because of this, Yaiba tells Sayaka to hand him the orb that gives him the power of a Thunder God. He knows that's the only way he would stand a chance against Mr. Bat. However, Sayaka fears that if he uses the orb again, he might get consumed by the Thunder God's power again and become a demon, just like what happened to Onimaru. Yaiba argues, saying he'll be fine and that he's been training. Even with that, back when Yaiba got consumed by the Thunder God's power, Miyamoto was there to snap him out of it, but now, there's nobody here to do that for him. At this point, Yaiba is really frustrated because not even his signature Senpuken attack was able to stop Mr. Bat. He's going to need to think of something clever to take him down. Just then, their hearts drop as they hear Mr. Bat's voice call out to them from afar. He's confident Yaiba won't escape this time. He summons several of his demon minions surrounding Yaiba. However, he does give Yaiba one last chance to hand over the Raging Sword without anyone getting hurt, but Yaiba is no coward. He manages to single-handedly defeat all of Mr. Bat's minions, but Mr. Bat swoops in and knocks him to the ground. Yaiba struggles to get up. With his current situation, he knows there's nowhere for him to run. Just then, Katagura bursts through Mr. Bat's minions. Both Yaiba and Sayaka are ecstatic. Mr. Bat sees this and is honestly shocked because he expected one of his minions to have taken Katagura down by now. But nonetheless, he sees this as a futile struggle for Yaiba. They both ride on Katagura's back, heading in the south direction, and judging by the look Yaiba has on his face, you can tell that he has a plan. About 10 minutes later, they take refuge in an old abandoned house, but Sayaka knows that it's only a matter of time before Mr. Bat finds them. She turns her back and sees Yaiba in a really ugly samurai suit, wondering where he's going with this. Katagura's spidey sense activates, so they all assume their best hiding spots. Mr. Bat bursts through the door and doesn't see anybody, although he can sense their presence, so he slices through one of the samurai suits and sees Sayaka in there. This provides the perfect opening for Yaiba to come up from behind and land a perfect strike on Mr. Bat. Yaiba knows that was a clean strike, still he wonders whether that would be enough to put Mr. Bat down for good. In the next moment, Mr. Bat is dazed but still standing because he blocked it. This makes Yaiba hate himself for not using his Senpuken technique. The strike only managed to remove his sunglasses, but Mr. Bat is still really pissed off. He's surrounded by a fake purple aura, so you know he means business now. Mr. Bat chases Yaiba back and forth until they reach the top of the roof. That's when Yaiba is about to draw his sword. He realizes that the Raging Sword is missing. With the sword missing, Mr. Bat is certain that he'll be able to defeat Yaiba. Meanwhile, Sayaka has just found the Raging Sword lying on the floor, so she tries to pick it up, but she can't even pick it up, so she wonders how Yaiba has been carrying it around all this while. Nonetheless, she calls over Katagura to help pick it up. She knows she has to get it over to Yaiba or else she's cooked. Along the way, they run into some of Mr. Bat's minions, but they quickly run past them because they know they don't have time to face them. Meanwhile, Yaiba is locked in a heated battle with Mr. Bat without a sword. Though he manages to dodge and weave through the attacks, it's clear he's on the losing side. Just then, Katagura and Sayaka arrive to toss him his sword. He immediately tries to use his Senpuken technique, but Mr. Bat tosses a dark orb inside it, which would prevent it from spinning. However, Yaiba is confident that he'll be able to chop Mr. Bat in half even without his Senpuken technique. They both clash blades for a few moments, but Mr. Bat is still managing to overpower him. Mr. Bat throws him on the floor and is about to deliver the final blow. Yaiba watches his life flash before his eyes. This is how it all ends. Sayaka sees this and thinks Yaiba is going to die, so she screams, and coincidentally, a ray of light bounces off her amulet and shines directly on Mr. Bat's face. That's when Yaiba's two brain cells click, realizing that bats hate sunlight. He immediately picks up his sword and uses it to run round the room and slices it open, taking the roof off and making Mr. Bat more exposed to the sunlight. Now the roof is off, Mr. Bat shrieks in pain and the dark orb he put on the Raging Sword fades away, meaning that this is his chance to use the Senpuken technique. He launches it, and in an instant Mr. Bat is split in half and deforms back into several bats that end up flying away. Yaiba has just saved the day again, so he hits the signature samurai pose for extra aura points. Sayaka runs over to him and hugs him, but he pushes her away, saying he's not focused on girls right now. Later that day, the gang are seen at the park having a snack, but Yaiba has refused to eat and is even training. He knows he still has a long way to go. For now, they need to head to Ganryu Island before Onimaru's poison spreads even wider. Yaiba has never been more determined. He needs to get stronger if he's going to be able to take Onimaru on.